Right from the very first day I bought my Nissan Leaf, I've been told by people it will be worth nothing in a couple of years' time. Every time I review a car, I get comments that the depreciation is going to be huge and it will be worth nothing. Well, I'm trying to buy a second-hand electric vehicle at the moment, and I can't seem to find any of these cheap electric vehicles anywhere. So why is that? Well, grab yourself a coffee, make yourselves comfortable, and let's have a chat today about electric vehicle depreciation. Morning, I hope you're all well today, and I hope I'm not going to ruin your day by talking about depreciation, because of course all our cars depreciate, whether it's an electric vehicle or an ICE one. It's just one of those things. We don't generally buy cars to make money out of them. But electric vehicles do have a very bad press when it comes to depreciation, and when they're new, certainly they lose an awful lot of money to begin with. But if you buy it second hand, well, actually you should be able to get a bargain based on that. And I've been fortunate enough that Chris, one of my long-term subscribers, he sent me some figures that he's been keeping on his used Nissan Leaf. And it shows us just how the prices have changed in the last year or so. Now, all these prices he's got from the valuation tool on Auto Trader. He's been doing it over a number of months. So whether you agree with that or not, whether you think that that's a good, accurate figure, well, it doesn't really matter because it gives us some consistency. So it just gives us an idea of what's happening. And I've got to be honest, I think they're pretty accurate from what I know and what I see of the market. So Chris, he bought a 2014 Nissan Leaf Techna. When he bought it, it was 2 years old, so he bought it in 2016. He paid just over £10,500 for it. It had done just over 22,500 miles, and it was in very good condition, and it still is. You can have a look at an old video I'll put a link to when we actually visited Chris and saw his car. He really does look after it. Now, bear in mind, he paid just over £10,500 in 2016. By the middle of 2017, the value had dropped, and it certainly by the end of 2017, by September, it was worth £9,040. Now, we then go into 2018, and by April, it had risen. It had gone up to £9,390. But then we see it fall away again into August when it's worth £9,100. But then we start to see a rise. And then from September of 2018, when it's worth £9,270, we go through to various figures, October, November, December of 2018, £9,630. So you can see how it's really starting to rise now. Coming to 2019, in February, it's worth £9,990. In March, £10,260. And by the end of March, he did a second figure. It was worth £10,340. So it had gone up £80 in less than a month. At that point, it had done 30,000 miles. So you can see from originally paying £10,500 to it's now worth over £10,300, he's lost very, very little money over 2 years of owning that car. So why is that? Why are people still willing to pay more and more for these electric vehicles? Well, of course, there's lots of reasons. There's so many different reasons. We couldn't list them all here, but let's look at the main ones. And some of the main ones, as far as I can see, is there's been this big drive towards cleaner, greener zones. So when you go to London and some other big cities, there's now areas that you cannot drive a petrol or diesel car in, certainly without having to pay extra for it. So that's very much on people's minds, and it's coming more and more as we head towards these low emissions times. And you know, we're told now we're going to get taxed more on petrol and diesel. And if we don't drive these electric cars or zero emissions cars, then we're just going to end up paying more and more. And we see the price of petrol and diesel going up. So all these things start making people look towards an alternative, and the only viable alternative, as far as I see it at the moment, is an electric vehicle. So there's more interest in them to begin with. The other thing is around the technology being used, and of course when I bought my car, people were really skeptical, especially about the battery, because of course there had been lots of stories about batteries failing. Well, now we see taxi companies and high mileage companies putting hundreds of thousands of miles on the original batteries, people are becoming more confident. We see great big warranties being put on by manufacturers. That makes people more confident in the product and more happy to buy one of these vehicles, and one of these vehicles that have got more miles on them. One of the other big reasons people don't like buying electric vehicles is because of a perceived lack of charging. Well, of course, charging isn't brilliant, but look how quickly it's growing. Look, every time you go into a service station, certainly here in the UK, you see certainly an Ecotricity charger, if not a bank of superchargers. Now, if you're always seeing that whenever you travel anywhere and you go into, again in the UK, little car parks, so many of them now have rapid chargers. At any shopping centre, you see rows of chargers, and you're starting to see cars plugged into them now. They're not just some dusty space in the corner with a load of rubbish in. So if that's in your psyche all the time and you're noticing it all the time, then you're more likely to go and explore the possibility of an electric vehicle. And then you're more likely to, of course, go and buy one. So with this newfound confidence that people have got, they go out and they look to buy an electric vehicle. Well, of course, most people, they can't afford a Tesla or a high-end luxury vehicle. So they'll look in the middle. They'll look at the brands that they're used to, whether that's Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, Renault, BMW, any of those brands that they're used to seeing on the road and they're used to buying, they'll go and look at those. But there's still that question about range, of course. And if you want to find a vehicle that has the range that you could cover, that you think you would need, you're thinking over 200 miles, then you're starting to look towards some of the slightly more expensive ones, albeit they're brands that you may well know. But then, of course, if you want to go and buy one, it's nigh on impossible. Kona's got, is it 18-month now waiting list? The e-Niro, well, that's a year plus waiting list. So you just can't buy them. So there's not these new vehicles coming on the market to flood the used vehicle market. So if you can't buy them new, then you start thinking, well, maybe if I had it as my second car. So let's look at something with a bit lower mileage. So let's look at the Nissan Leaf or the Renault Zoe. Well, they're great and I can buy them and the prices are pretty good. So people have started to buy those. But as I said, we haven't got those new vehicles coming back in to flood the market to take away the vehicles that are being sold as second-hand ones. So we've got this kind of catch-22 at the moment of people wanting to buy them but not able to buy them. And the demand has rocketed. There's no question about it. We've turned a corner and the adoption of electric vehicles is now starting to hit the masses. But all that means is that the prices start to rise again. It's a simple scales of economy, supply and demand. There's not enough supply to meet the demand out there. So prices have started to rise. So if you bought a Nissan Leaf a year ago, you'll probably find it's worth more now than it was a year ago, which is incredible. You could drive a car for a year, put the mileage on it and still get more money back for it. And of course, I'm just talking about cars, but when we talk about these low emission zones, it's commercial vehicles going in and out them. It's final mile deliveries. And I also found that the ENV200 in the last year has gone up £1,000 in its value, and that they're reckoning is purely due to these low emission zones, and people actually now thinking, well, I need to do not only my bit but I also need to save my company money. So it's not just the cars, it's also it goes across to the vans as well. Now of course, let's not get carried away. Yes, the original price, you do find there is an awful lot of depreciation, and to give you that comparison, so to buy a brand new Nissan Leaf Tecna in 2014, before all the government grants, it was just over £30,000, so it was under £30,000. Of course, it was a lot less because back in 2014, they were so desperate to sell them. The reductions and the PCPs and everything else that went with it were ridiculous. But if we reckon that was, what, £27,000 to buy new, with all the reductions, a Nissan Pulsar, the Tecna in 2014 was worth, you could buy one for about £20,350. It's now, if you take a general view of it, all the different engine types, you could buy one today for about £10,000 with similar mileage on to what I'm talking with Chris's car. So that's lost about half its value. The Nissan Leaf has lost about 2/3 of its value. So yeah, that initial depreciation still stands. But if you're buying second-hand, you don't have to worry about any of that. Actually, as a second-hand car, not only do you save on depreciation, you also save on all the fuel that you put in and all your other running costs. So it's it almost pays you to buy an electric car. that can't be right, surely. But yeah, it seems like it does. You know, the savings to be made are massive on the second-hand market, and I think people are wising up to that, and that's why the prices are starting to go up. But that's just my view and the view of one person with a Nissan Leaf. What are your experiences? Do you own a Renault Zoe? What's that like at the moment? I would ask Tesla owners what your experience is like, but of course you've just had massive slashed off the value of your cars, and yeah, it would skew the market. But let's be honest, how do you feel about that? Do you think he did the right thing? I'm suspecting if you own one, probably not. If you're looking to buy one, then you're probably quite happy that the value has been slashed. But yeah, put some comments in. What do you feel about it? And anybody else, if you're looking to buy a car, what are your feelings on owning a second-hand electric vehicle with low mileage? Are you confident in buying one? Does knowing that probably over the next year the value of it won't change no matter what you do to it, does that make you more confident? Are you more likely to go out and buy one now? Let's have a conversation in the comments afterwards, as I always like to do. I love these two-way conversations. So pop some comments in, let's talk about it. Tell me about your views and opinions. Do they match mine or are they completely different? Either way, it's good to chat. So until next time, enjoy the rest of your coffee. I certainly will. I'm going to go get a slice of cake now to go with it because I haven't eaten enough chocolate this Easter. And have a great afternoon. And until next time, you take care. All the best.